There's a reason you're here right now. And I want you to really think about that for a moment. Not the surface reason. Not because someone sent you a link or because you were scrolling and this caught your eye. I'm talking about the real reason. The reason that lives deeper in that place inside you that knows something has to change. That place that's been whispering to you or maybe screaming at you that you were meant for more than this. You're here because you've been knocked down. Maybe you've been knocked down so many times that you've started to wonder if you should even bother getting back up. Maybe you've lost something precious. A relationship, a business, your health, your confidence, your sense of purpose. Maybe you look in the mirror and you don't even recognize the person staring back at you anymore. That person who used to dream big. That person who used to believe anything was possible. But here's what I know with absolute certainty, and I need you to hear this in your bones. You are standing at the threshold of the greatest comeback of your entire life. Not tomorrow, not someday, right now. This moment, this is where it begins. You see, there's something most people don't understand about comebacks. They think a comeback is just about getting back to where you were before, like returning to some previous version of yourself. But that's not what's happening here. What's happening here is so much more powerful than that. You're not going back to who you were. You're being forged into who you were always meant to become. I want to tell you about the caterpillar. Now, I know you've heard the story before, but I want you to really consider what happens inside that chrysalis. When that caterpillar goes into the cocoon, it doesn't just grow wings and emerge beautiful. No, it completely dissolves. Its body literally breaks down into a kind of soup. Imagine that. Everything it knew itself to be completely falling apart. If that caterpillar had consciousness, if it could think, it would believe it was dying. It would believe this was the end. But hidden in that dissolved mess are these things called imaginal cells. These cells carry the blueprint of what's coming next, and slowly, against all odds, those imaginal cells start to form something entirely new. Not a better caterpillar, a butterfly, a creature that can do something the caterpillar could never even imagine a fly. That's you right now. You might feel like you're dissolving, like everything is falling apart, like you're losing yourself. But what's actually happening is that you're transforming into something that can soar in ways you've never soared before. Let me take you back to a story from my own journey. There was a time years ago when I had lost my way completely. I had been training in the monastery, devoted to the path, and then I left. I found myself in the modern world, surrounded by noise and chaos and expectations, and I didn't know who I was anymore. The discipline I had learned seemed useless. The peace I had cultivated seemed unreachable. I watched as my mind became clouded, as old patterns returned, as I made choices that took me further from my true self. I remember sitting alone one night, and the thought came to me, I have failed. All those years of training, and I have learned nothing. That was one of the darkest moments of my life. But it was also the most important. Because in that moment of complete humility, when I stopped pretending I had all the answers, when I stopped resisting what was happening, something shifted. I realized that this falling apart wasn't the end of my journey. It was the beginning of understanding what the journey had actually been teaching me all along. You see, I had learned the forms. I had learned the movements. I had learned the philosophy. But I hadn't truly internalized the wisdom until I lost it all and had to find it again in the midst of chaos. The comeback wasn't about returning to the monastery. It was about bringing the monastery into every moment of my life, wherever I was. That's the first truth I want to share with you today. Your breakdown is not your failure. It's your breakthrough in disguise. Everything that's fallen apart had to fall apart so that you could rebuild yourself on a foundation that cannot be shaken. Think about the greatest comeback stories you know. Think about Muhammad Ali, stripped of his title, banned from boxing for 3 years in his prime, coming back to win the championship again. Think about J.K. Rowling, a single mother on welfare, rejected by 12 publishers, going on to create a literary phenomenon. Think about Robert Downey Jr., destroyed by addiction, unable to get insured for a movie, transforming into one of the most beloved actors of our generation. What do all these stories have in common? It's not that these people just returned to their former glory. It's that they became more, they became wiser, they became humbler, they became more resilient, they became more human. Their comebacks weren't just about external success. They were about internal transformation. And that's what's happening to you right now, whether you realize it or not. Every moment of pain, every moment of doubt, every moment of darkness has been carving something out inside you. It's been creating space for something greater, space for the real you to emerge. But here's the thing, and this is crucial: this comeback will not happen by accident. It will not happen just because you want it to. It will not happen because you think positive thoughts or make a vision board or say affirmations in the mirror. Those things have their place, but they're not enough. This comeback requires something deeper. It requires you to make a decision that most people are not willing to make. You have to be willing to let go of who you've been pretending to be. You have to be willing to release the image you've been protecting, the identity you've been clinging to, the story you've been telling yourself about who you are and what's possible for you. You have to be willing to stand in the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable. There's an old Zen story about a professor who visits a master to learn about Zen. The master begins to pour tea into the professor's cup, and he keeps pouring even as the cup becomes full. The tea spills over the sides, and the professor finally says, "Stop. Can't you see the cup is full?" And the master replies, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and preconceptions. How can I teach you unless you first empty your cup?" Your comeback begins with emptying your cup, with admitting that maybe, just maybe, the way you've been doing things hasn't been working, with acknowledging that the beliefs you've been holding onto might be the very chains keeping you trapped, with recognizing that your ego's need to be right has been more important to you than your soul's need to be free. This is not easy. In fact, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. Because the ego will fight to survive. It will tell you that you don't need to change, that everyone else is the problem, that you're the victim, that the world is against you. And maybe there's truth in some of that. Maybe you have been treated unfairly. Maybe you have been hurt by people you trusted. Maybe life has thrown you curveballs that nobody deserves. But here's the question that changes everything. Are you going to let that define you, or are you going to let it refine you? Are you going to stay focused on what happened to you, or are you going to focus on what you're going to do about it? Are you going to give your power away to your past, or are you going to reclaim your power in this present moment? I want you to understand something about power. Real power. Not the power of control or domination or force. I'm talking about the power that comes from being fully present, fully authentic, fully committed to your path. That power is always available to you. Always. It doesn't matter what's happened. It doesn't matter what you've lost. It doesn't matter how many times you've failed. In this moment right now, you have access to that power. But you have to choose it. You have to choose to step into it. You have to choose to believe, even when everything in your external reality is telling you otherwise, that you are capable of this comeback, that you are worthy of this comeback, that you are deserving of this comeback. Let me tell you about a student who came to the monastery. We'll call him David. David arrived broken. His marriage had ended. His business had failed. He had lost his home. He was drowning in debt. He told me he had come to the monastery because he had nowhere else to go. He said, "I am a failure. I am worthless. I have destroyed everything I touched." I looked at him and I said, "Good. Now we can begin." He was confused, even angry. "Good," he asked. How can any of this be good? And I explained to him that as long as he was clinging to who he thought he should be, as long as he was resisting what was, he could not transform. But now, stripped of everything, he had the opportunity to discover who he really was beneath all the roles and titles and achievements. David stayed with us for 6 months. In the beginning, he could barely sit in meditation for 5 minutes without his mind tormenting him with memories of what he'd lost. But slowly, day by day, he began to find moments of peace. He began to see that his thoughts were not facts, that his feelings were not his identity, that his past did not have to determine his future. When David left the monastery, he didn't leave with a plan to rebuild his business or fix his marriage. He left with something more valuable. He left with an unshakable knowing that he was okay exactly as he was, that his worth was not dependent on his accomplishments or his relationships or his bank account. And from that place of wholeness, from that place of inner peace, he began to rebuild his life. The last I heard, David had started a small business helping others who were going through financial difficulties. He was remarried to someone who loved him for who he was, not what he could provide. He was living simply but joyfully. He had made his comeback, but more importantly, he had become himself. That's what I want for you. Not just success, not just achievement, not just getting back to where you were. I want you to become who you truly are. Because when you do that, when you align with your authentic self, success becomes inevitable, not because you're forcing it or chasing it or manipulating circumstances, but because you're in flow with your purpose. You're in harmony with your path. You're expressing your gifts in a way that serves the world. But to get there, you have to go through the fire. You have to face the parts of yourself you've been running from. You have to look at your shadows. You have to acknowledge your weaknesses. You have to take responsibility for your part in the situations you're in, even when it feels unfair, even when you want to blame others. Responsibility is not about fault. It's about power. When you take responsibility, you're saying, I may not have caused this situation, but I have the ability to respond to it. I have the ability to choose my attitude. I have the ability to choose my actions. I have the ability to choose who I become through this. There's a practice we do in the temple called sitting with discomfort. It's exactly what it sounds like. You sit in meditation, and when discomfort arises, whether it's physical pain in your legs or emotional pain in your heart or mental pain in your mind, you don't move. You don't distract yourself, you don't run. You sit with it. You observe it. You breathe through it. And what you discover when you do this practice sincerely is that the discomfort has a message for you. The pain is trying to teach you something. Your body is trying to tell you something. Your emotions are trying to show you something. Your mind is trying to reveal something. But we live in a world that's constantly running from discomfort. We numb ourselves with substances, with entertainment, with busyness, with anything that will distract us from what we're really feeling. And in doing so, we miss the very wisdom that could set us free. Your comeback requires you to sit with discomfort. It requires you to face the fear that's been holding you back. The fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of being seen, the fear of not being enough, the fear of being too much. Whatever your particular brand of fear is, it's time to look it in the eye. And here's what I've learned about fear. It's not your enemy. Fear is actually trying to protect you. It's your primitive brain doing its job, trying to keep you safe from perceived threats. The problem is that your brain can't tell the difference between a real threat, like a tiger chasing you, and an imagined threat, like starting a new business or having a difficult conversation or putting yourself out there in a new way. So fear shows up and it says, don't do it. It's not safe. Stay where you are. And if you listen to that voice, if you let that voice control your decisions, you will stay stuck forever. You will never make your comeback. You will never discover what you're truly capable of. You will never know the joy of living fully alive. But if you can learn to acknowledge the fear, thank it for trying to protect you, and then move forward anyway, everything changes. That's courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action in the presence of fear. Courage is saying, I see you fear, and I'm doing this anyway. I remember when I first had to speak in front of a large audience. I had spoken in smaller settings, in the monastery, in training situations. But this was different. This was thousands of people. And the fear was overwhelming. My heart was racing. My palms were sweating. My mind was telling me all the ways I could fail, all the ways I could embarrass myself. And then I remembered something my master had taught me. He said, the fear you feel is energy. It's neutral. You can interpret it as terror, or you can interpret it as excitement. You can let it shut you down, or you can let it fuel you. The choice is yours. So I made a choice. I decided to interpret the energy I was feeling as excitement, as my body preparing to do something important, as life force moving through me. And I walked onto that stage, and I spoke from my heart, and it was one of the most powerful experiences of my life. Not because it was perfect. It wasn't. I stumbled over words. I lost my place a few times. But it was powerful because I showed up fully. I didn't hide. I didn't hold back. I gave everything I had. That's what your comeback is calling you to do. To show up fully. To stop hiding. To stop playing small. To stop pretending you're less than you are so that others feel comfortable. To stop dimming your light so that you don't cast shadows on other people's insecurities. You have something the world needs. You have gifts that are meant to be shared. You have wisdom that's been earned through your struggles. You have a voice that deserves to be heard. And every day that you hold back, every day that you play it safe, every day that you let fear make your decisions for you, is a day that the world is deprived of what only you can give. Let that sink in for a moment. The world needs your comeback. Not just for you, but for everyone whose life you're meant to touch. For everyone who's waiting for the contribution only you can make. For everyone who will be inspired by your transformation. For everyone who will see what's possible when they watch you rise. You are not just making a comeback for yourself. You're making a comeback for all of us. Because when one person breaks through their limitations, it gives permission for others to do the same. When one person transforms their pain into power, it shows others that transformation is possible. When one person refuses to give up, refuses to stay down, refuses to accept defeat, it lights a fire in the hearts of everyone who witnesses it. So let's talk about the practical side of this comeback. Because inspiration is beautiful, but transformation requires action. And not just any action. Intentional action. Disciplined action. Consistent action. The first thing you need is clarity. You need to get clear on what you actually want. Not what your parents want for you. Not what society expects of you. Not what you think you should want. What does your soul long for? What would make you feel alive? What would make you excited to wake up in the morning? And please, don't censor yourself here. Don't make your dreams small because you're afraid they're not achievable. Don't make them practical because you're worried about how you'll make them happen. Just let yourself dream. Let yourself imagine. Let yourself feel into what a life that truly excites you would look like. Maybe it's building a business that serves others in a meaningful way. Maybe it's creating art that moves people. Maybe it's traveling the world and experiencing different cultures. Maybe it's having deep, authentic relationships. Maybe it's achieving a level of physical fitness you've never had before. Maybe it's writing a book. Maybe it's learning a new skill. Maybe it's making a difference in your community. Maybe it's all of these things. Maybe something completely different. Whatever it is, get clear on it. Write it down. Draw it. Speak it out loud. Make it real in your mind before it becomes real in your world. Because everything that exists in physical reality began as a thought. Every building, every business, every relationship. Every achievement started as an idea in someone's mind. But here's where most people get stuck. They have the vision, but they don't take the next step. And the next step is this: you have to be willing to start where you are. Not where you wish you were, not where you think you should be, where you actually are right now. If you're in debt, you start there. If you're out of shape, you start there. If you're lonely, you start there. If you're afraid, you start there. You don't wait until conditions are perfect. You don't wait until you feel ready. You don't wait until you have it all figured out. You start now with what you have from where you are. There's a Chinese proverb that says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Stop mourning the time you've lost. Stop regretting the decisions you've made. Stop wishing you had started earlier. You're here now. That's what matters, what you're going to do with the time you have left. Because I promise you, a year from now, you're going to wish you had started today. And when you start, you have to be willing to be bad at it. You have to be willing to be a beginner. You have to be willing to fail, to fall, to make mistakes, to look foolish. Because that's how mastery happens. That's how growth happens. Nobody starts at the top. Nobody skips the awkward stages. Nobody avoids the learning curve. I've been practicing martial arts for decades, and I still consider myself a student. I still make mistakes. I still discover new things. I still find areas where I need to improve. The day you think you've arrived, the day you think you know everything, is the day your growth stops. Stay humble. Stay curious. Stay willing to learn. Your comeback is not a destination. It's a journey. And on this journey, you're going to face obstacles. You're going to encounter setbacks. You're going to have days where you want to quit. This is normal. This is part of the process. Don't be surprised by it. Don't let it discourage you. Expect it. Plan for it. Prepare for it. When I was training in the monastery, there was a practice where we would stand in a horse stance for extended periods of time. If you've never done this, let me tell you, it's excruciating. Your legs burn. Your muscles shake. Your mind screams at you to stop. And the lesson of this practice is not just physical strength. It's mental fortitude. It's learning that you can endure more than you think you can. It's discovering that the moment you want to quit is usually the moment right before the breakthrough. So when things get hard, and they will, I want you to remember something. You're stronger than you know. You've already survived everything life has thrown at you up to this point. Every difficult moment, every painful experience, every devastating loss. You're still here. You're still standing. You're still breathing. That alone is proof of your strength. And now you're going to use that strength to build the life you deserve. One day at a time. One decision at a time. One action at a time. You're going to wake up every morning and make a commitment to yourself. A commitment to show up. A commitment to do the work. A commitment to keep going even when you don't feel like it. Motivation is wonderful when it's there. But discipline is what carries you through when motivation fades. Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when you don't want to do it. Discipline is keeping your promises to yourself even when no one else is watching. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. And here's something important to understand about discipline. It's not about being hard on yourself. It's not about punishment or deprivation. It's about loving yourself enough to do what's best for you in the long run, even when it's not easy in the moment. It's about being the parent to yourself that you needed when you were younger. It's about giving yourself structure and boundaries, not to restrict yourself, but to set yourself free. Think about it like this: a river without banks is just a flood, destructive and chaotic. But a river with banks becomes a powerful force that can carve canyons, generate electricity, sustain life. The banks don't restrict the river. They give it direction and power. That's what discipline does for you. So create structure in your life. Have a morning routine that sets you up for success. Have an evening routine that allows you to rest and recover. Have daily practices that keep you connected to your purpose. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe it's exercise. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's reading. Maybe it's all of these things. Find what works for you and do it consistently. Consistency is the secret that nobody wants to hear because it's not sexy. It's not exciting. It's not dramatic, but it's everything. The person who works out intensely for a week and then quits gets nowhere. The person who works out moderately but consistently for years transforms their body. The person who writes when they feel inspired produces very little. The person who writes every day regardless of inspiration becomes a prolific author. Your comeback will be built on the foundation of small, consistent actions compounded over time. It will be built on the days when you showed up even though you didn't feel like it. It will be built on the moments when you chose growth over comfort. It will be built on the decisions you made when nobody was watching and nobody would have known if you had taken the easy way out. Because here's the truth, you're doing this for you, not for applause, not for recognition, not to prove anything to anyone else. You're doing this because you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the person you're becoming. You owe it to the life that's waiting for you on the other side of this transformation. And along the way, you're going to have to make some difficult choices. You're going to have to let go of relationships that no longer serve you. You're going to have to create boundaries with people who drain your energy. You're going to have to say no to things that distract you from your path. You're going to have to disappoint some people. You're going to have to risk being misunderstood. This is painful, but it's necessary. You cannot hold on to everything from your old life and expect to create a new one. You cannot keep doing the same things and expect different results. Something has to change. And that something starts with the choices you make about how you spend your time, who you spend it with, and what you give your energy to. I want to tell you about the concept of letting go. In Buddhism, we talk a lot about non-attachment, but people often misunderstand what this means. They think it means not caring, not loving, not wanting anything. That's not it at all. Non-attachment means holding things lightly. It means enjoying the present moment without clinging to it. It means loving people without trying to control them. It means pursuing goals without making your happiness dependent on achieving them. When you practice non-attachment, you free yourself from so much suffering. Because suffering comes from attachment. It comes from wanting things to be different than they are. It comes from resisting what is. It comes from trying to hold on to things that are meant to flow. Your comeback requires you to practice letting go. Letting go of resentment toward people who hurt you. Letting go of regret about decisions you made. Letting go of the need to know exactly how everything is going to work out. Letting go of the illusion that you can control circumstances. The only thing you can control is yourself, your thoughts, your attitudes, your actions, your responses. That's it. Everything else is outside your control. And when you really accept this, when you really internalize this truth, it's incredibly liberating. Because you stop wasting energy trying to change things you can't change. You stop fighting reality. You stop arguing with what is. Instead, you put all your energy into what you can influence yourself. There's a story about a monk who's walking through a forest and comes across a scorpion drowning in a stream. He reaches down to save it, and the scorpion stings him. He pulls his hand back in pain, but then reaches down again to save the scorpion. Again, it stings him. This happens several times. A man watching this says to the monk, "Why do you keep trying to save that scorpion? Don't you see that it's in its nature to sting you?" And the monk replies, "Yes, it's in the scorpion's nature to sting, but it's in my nature to save. Should I change my nature because the scorpion doesn't change his?" This story teaches us something profound about who we choose to be regardless of circumstances. Your comeback is about discovering your nature and living in alignment with it, regardless of what others do or don't do. It's about being committed to your values, even when it's hard. It's about maintaining your integrity even when no one is watching. It's about being kind even to those who haven't been kind to you. Now, I want to address something that might be happening for some of you right now. You might be listening to all of this and thinking, this sounds good, but you don't understand my situation. You don't know how hard things are for me. You don't know what I'm dealing with. And you're right. I don't know your specific circumstances, but I know this, whatever you're facing, someone has faced worse and still made a comeback. I know people who have lost everything in wars and rebuilt their lives from nothing. I know people who have overcome addictions that nearly killed them and now help others do the same. I know people who have been betrayed by everyone they trusted and still found the courage to love again. I know people who have been diagnosed with terminal illnesses and defied all odds. I know people who have been through abuse, trauma, poverty, and still found a way to rise. I'm not saying this to diminish your pain. I'm saying it to show you what's possible. I'm saying it to remind you that the human spirit is incredibly resilient, that you have reserves of strength you haven't even tapped into yet, that your capacity for transformation is greater than you can imagine. But you have to believe it's possible. You have to believe you're worth it. You have to believe that your life can be different. Because if you don't believe, if you're already defeated in your mind, then you're right. Nothing will change. But if you can find even a small spark of belief, even a tiny ember of hope, we can work with that. We can fan that into a flame. We can grow that into a fire that transforms your entire life. Let me talk to you about the power of belief. There's a phenomenon called the placebo effect. People are given a sugar pill, told it's medicine, and they get better. Not because of the pill, because of what they believe about the pill. Their belief literally changes their physiology. It activates their body's healing mechanisms. The belief becomes the medicine. Your beliefs about yourself, about your life, about what's possible, are creating your reality right now. If you believe you're broken beyond repair, you'll find evidence for that everywhere. If you believe you're cursed, you'll interpret everything through that lens. If you believe you're not good enough, you'll sabotage opportunities that come your way. But what if you changed those beliefs? What if you started to believe that everything that's happened to you has been preparing you for something greater? What if you started to believe that you have unique gifts that the world needs? What if you started to believe that your greatest days are ahead of you, not behind you? I'm not talking about toxic positivity here. I'm not suggesting you deny reality or pretend everything is fine when it's not. I'm talking about choosing empowering interpretations instead of disempowering ones. I'm talking about looking for what's right instead of only seeing what's wrong. I'm talking about asking better questions. Instead of, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this teaching me? Instead of, why am I such a failure? Ask, what can I learn from this experience? Instead of, what if I fail again? Ask, what if I succeed? Instead of, what's wrong with me? Ask, what's right with me? The questions you ask yourself shape your focus, and your focus shapes your experience, and your experience shapes your life. So choose your questions carefully. Choose interpretations that empower you rather than defeat you. Choose thoughts that build you up rather than tear you down. And surround yourself with people who believe in you. This is crucial. You cannot make this comeback alone. You need support. You need encouragement. You need people who see your potential even when you can't see it yourself. You need people who will hold you accountable when you want to slip back into old patterns. You need people who will celebrate your wins and support you through your losses. If you don't have these people in your life right now, you need to find them. Join groups aligned with your goals. Find mentors who have accomplished what you want to accomplish. Connect with others who are on a similar journey. Build your tribe, because the 5 people you spend the most time with have an enormous influence on your mindset, your habits, and your outcomes. and be willing to be that person for others too. Be the encouragement someone else needs. Share your journey, including your struggles. Let people see that it's possible to rise after falling. Your vulnerability might be the permission someone else needs to begin their own comeback. There's something beautiful that happens when you share your story authentically. When you stop trying to look like you have it all together and instead show the messy, imperfect reality of your growth. People connect with that. They're inspired by that because everyone is fighting their own battle. Everyone has their own struggles. And when you're brave enough to share yours, it helps others feel less alone. Your comeback has the power to ripple out and create comebacks for others. Never underestimate the impact of your transformation. You might think your life doesn't matter, that you're just one person, that you can't make a difference. But that's the ego talking, trying to keep you small. The truth is that every life matters. Every person has infinite potential to influence others. Every story of transformation sends light into the darkness. So, as you're building your comeback, do it with awareness that you're not just changing your own life. You're changing your family's trajectory. You're changing what your children or future children will believe is possible. You're changing the energy you bring into every interaction. You're changing the world in ways you may never fully see or understand. Now let's talk about the middle part of your comeback journey. Because the beginning is exciting. You're motivated, you're inspired, you're taking action. But then comes the middle, and the middle is where most people quit. The novelty has worn off. The progress seems slow. The obstacles seem overwhelming. The old patterns are trying to pull you back. This is the valley. This is the test. I call this the dark night of the soul phase of transformation. Everything feels harder. You're between who you were and who you're becoming. And that in between space is uncomfortable. You've left the familiar but haven't yet arrived at the new. You're in limbo. And this is when you need to dig deeper than you've ever dug before. This is when you need to remember why you started. This is when you need to look at how far you've come, not just how far you have to go. This is when you need to be gentle with yourself while also staying committed. This is when you need to trust the process, even though you can't see the results yet. There's a story about a man who's been hitting a huge rock with a sledgehammer for hours. He swings the hammer again and again, and nothing happens. The rock doesn't crack, it doesn't even chip. People walking by think he's crazy. They tell him to give up, but he keeps swinging. And then, on what might be the 100th swing, the rock splits in two. Did that final swing break the rock? No. Every swing broke the rock. Every impact created tiny fractures that weren't visible, but were accumulating. The last swing was simply the one that revealed what all the previous swings had accomplished. Your consistent efforts are creating fractures in your old reality even when you can't see them yet. Every day you show up is having an impact, even if the results aren't visible yet. Every small action is building momentum, even if it doesn't feel like it. Trust that the breakthrough is coming. Trust that your work is not in vain. Trust that transformation takes time. And during this middle phase, be very careful about who you listen to. Because people will have opinions about your journey. They'll tell you you're changing too much. They'll tell you you're not the same person you used to be. And you can smile and say, "You're right. Thank you for noticing." That's exactly the point. People resist change in others because it forces them to confront their own lack of change. Your growth makes them uncomfortable, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you're reflecting back to them what they're not doing. So they'll try to pull you back down. They'll remind you of who you used to be. They'll bring up your past failures. They'll doubt your ability to succeed. Don't let this derail you. Understand that this is their fear, not yours. Their limitation, not yours. Their story, not yours. Keep your eyes on your path. Stay focused on your vision. Continue doing the work. The people who are meant to be in your life will adapt or they'll fall away. And that's okay. It's all part of the process. One of the most important lessons I've learned is that you can't change by staying the same. That sounds obvious, but think about what it means. It means you have to be willing to become unrecognizable to your old self. It means you have to be willing to outgrow certain people, places, and things. It means you have to be willing to say goodbye to comfortable patterns that are keeping you stuck. This requires ruthless honesty with yourself. You have to look at your life and ask, what is serving me? What is holding me